with Earl V. Newman, 6417 82nd Avenue East, Palmetto, Florida, phone 813-723-3219, at his home, Friday, February the 24th, 1989, and Helen Earley of the Oldsmobile History Center, tape 1 of 2 tapes. Well, Earl, I guess we're all set. Who are you?
Hey, I'm Earl Newman. I applied for the job at Oldsmobile. I'll be in July of 1982.
1982?
Or no, I'm sorry. 52.
July 52?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Who did
was
you
called
talk with?
once.
Who did you talk with when you applied for the job?
I couldn't tell you.
Where was the employment office?
It wasn't where it is now.
Where was it?
They built the new building. Since then.
Where was
But
it?
I think you went in on the north side.
Of what building?
I believe, was it building 40?
You don't know. That's all right.
I think it was building 40. It was the employment on building 40.
Okay.
Um,
Remember who you talked with?
mhm.
That's all right.
But I was called in once, and they wanted me to offer me a job. I was working at the time at John Bean, and they offered me a job at in final assembly. I don't like assembly, and I refused it. I asked them if the application would still be in force, and they said, yep. So, and I think it was February the 1st or 2nd, 3rd, something like that. I moved, and I went down to the employment office and asked and changed my address. And Red Cherry, remember him?
Yes.
Well, he had to be in there, and he said, well, you want to go to work? And I said, well, I was just going to say, ask him where, and he said, well, I got an opening in the final, I got an opening in the main plant, we got an opening in the jet plant. And I said, I'll go work at the jet plant. That's what I wanted anyway, because I had worked during the war in the aviation plant in Muskegon. And so.
What did you do in the jet plant?
Well, when I first went in, I worked for Amos Proctor. And Bob Scott was general foreman. They had a bunch of dual grinders. There were rings about a foot in diameter, and they were serrated all the way around. But I think there's 144 serrations in them. That was a part that went, not jet engine. And I think they had 16 little dual grinders, and they were in the process of setting them up. And the company factory man was there. And I was there probably 10 days, and then they put me working with him, setting these machines up. And they had 16, I think I might be wrong, it might have been 12, but I believe it was 16. And they would have to had that many machines to produce what they wanted.
What was this serrated part? What was it called?
But I think it was a ring of some kind. It was about that big.
And it went in the jet engine.
It went in the jet engine.
About 10 inches in diameter?
Yeah, it was bigger than that.
Foot or 14?
Probably 10 inches, yeah. And so we started up, we got one of them going, and we got another one going, and they started hiring people in, and most of them that was coming on, it was in small parts. And the women was coming in, working on these grinders.
Oh, now these grinders could grind more than one part?
No, they were the slowest thing you've ever seen. I think they figured when they bought the grinders that they could get maybe 4 parts a day off them. And you had to go the grinding wheel over here and cut down. The V was about that deep. So it cut down and took part of it. Then go back and it index. come back and cut, go back, index. And after you got it started, you could sit there for an hour before it indexed all the way around, see? Then they come back and had to form the wheel on it was really a form grinder. And had to form the wheel and then go back and do all the way around it again. And then go back, form the wheel, and then just take a real fine cut to finish it up. It had to be, that finished cut had to be perfect. And then we had a inspection, was a, what you call maybe a gauge that they set down over top of it with a light in it. And you couldn't see, you could only see, I think, like maybe 8% light any place around it, through it. So it had to be that perfect. And we had problems because we had to try different grinding wheels, which ones would hold up the best. And some of them would break down real fast, and they had the grinding wheel benders in. And so it was a process of a month or two before we started getting them going. And then as we get one going, there was hiring people in, they'd put a lady on one of them. And it was, somebody never worked in the plant before. It was kind of, and they were coolant running on them. All it was grinding, it was a coolant running, coolant.
What kind of solution was that coolant?
Yeah, cool. It's
Oil or water?
It's a soluble oil
Soluble?
solution. It looks like milk it's brown when they get it in the plant, and then they mix it with water. It's kind of a milky, but it's a good coolant. All machines that had it for years.
But you can only do about 4
Yeah.
in a
Well, I was
day?
going to say, we started on that, and I think we got 4 of them going.
4 machines going?
4 machines going, and the factory man, he had a vacation coming, and I think it was, I believe it was Easter vacation. So he had a vacation plus the Easter vacation, so he went back to Minnesota.
Who
And
was he? Do you remember his name?
no,
Okay.
couldn't remember. But I worked in there for probably 2 months or better. But while he was gone, I couldn't see any reason why we couldn't produce more than what we got out of it. It just seemed silly to me.
So you were only making 4,
Well, we weren't even, I don't even think at first we was making that many because we was having problems with them and this and that kind of thing, but
you had 4 machines going, but maybe only 4 or 5 wheels were coming out a day?
yeah, well, we had 4, I'd say maybe average 3, 4, but probably maybe 12. But I think we was running as many as was required. In fact, I know we were. But it was stepping up all the time, see, production going on. So I experimented with one. I took one and because we couldn't, I guess the millwrights were installing more of them at the time. Machine repair was installing. But I took one and just whipped it right out. Buzz, 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 buzz. And then I took the next cut and went still faster than they had the first one. And then I finished a real fine one and took it over and had it checked. And it checked just as good as the other ones. So I got with Amos Proctor, the foreman, and told him what I done. And he said, well, it looks good to me. And so he got the engineer down. It's run a couple of days. And finally we got, I think we was running 6 or 7 a day, and we shipped half the machines back.
You saved the company some money, didn't
Yeah.
you?
But you can see the machine vendor point. They said it'll do this many, and they knew it'd do it, and they sell more machines. But you get in a place like that, you can't, and I don't know. Anyway, it turned out good.
Now, about what year was that? 1953, 54?
That was in 53, yeah.
53,
Yeah.
okay.
And then, of course, we produced those for up until, while I was a utility man, the classification.
Now, what does the utility man do?
Well, you're kind of a leader. Some factories, they call them leaders, and some utility men, some It's all the same thing. You get, I don't know, a dime more an hour.
But what would your area of responsibility be?
Well, you had to make sure the machines are running and, you know, kind of take care of them and change tools and change wheels and.
Had the stock to work on?
Huh?
Had to make sure you
Oh,
had the
yeah,
stock
yeah,
to work on? Do you remember what you were hired in at when you first?
Yeah, $1.65 an hour.
$1.65 and 52.
Mm-hmm. 53.
53.
I'm sure it was $1.65. I know, it might have been $1.60, either $1.60 or 65. Because John Bean, there was no future there. And I hadn't worked there very long anyway. I sold a tavern up in northern Michigan. And I come down to Lansing and just temporarily, John Bean was hiring. I went in there and on repair. I done repair work. And, but I see there's no future in there. So then I wanted to go over to the jet plant because I had experience over Muskegon and during the war and aviation plant. So they produced them until, I think about 53, 54. 54, they started to come in and bust concrete and put the bumper plant and bumper plating.
Bumper plating.
And in the north, what was it? There was that would have been the northeast part of the building.
Okay.
And
so they enlarged the building? Or just took out some areas?
They took out an area and we had quite a problem because these big stink busters that raised up, banged down, you know, it was vibrating the whole area.
Oh, yes.
So I had to put indicators on the base of the machine and the part to make sure when that bang, it didn't jar the indicator enough to make the grinder cut wrong, see.
Oh, yes.
But we checked it out, and it was all right. But it was, you know, it could have very well affected it because of the fact that the finished part had to be so close.
Yes.
And then they, I don't remember. It seems like the Korean War started to wind down, and they weren't using as many parts. And the bumper plate, of course, the bumper plating and the bumper presses over there, they were really pushing those. And Bob Scott wanted me to go there one day, and because they need some more help. And our department was real slow, so I went over there one day and
to the bumper plating.
Yeah, no, not plating. The press room where they pressed bumpers, and I hated that. Next time he come, I said he wanted me to go transfer over. I said no way about it. And
how do they press bumpers?
No. Did you ever been in the big press room?
No.
Oh well, they have sheets of metal.
What kind of metal would that be?
Well, it's steel, sheet steel.
Sheet steel.
And of course, when the steel comes in, it's all goes through the steel room. It's all tested, spot checked, and it's got to be. There's thousands of different. You know, the steel in the bumper is different from the steel in the body car, the body, and
yes,
the brackets that hold it, that's a lot different. Steel is different, but they have to have a regular specification for whatever they use it for.
So that steel then was tested to the specifications for Oldsmobile for the bumper.
Right. And then they come down, they had them big presses that'd press it and shear it off, and then they went from there on a conveyor or hand. I think probably back then it was quite a lot of hand handling between machines. Mm-hmm. And then handle it into another machine and put on a conveyor and then go into another machine. And now they got it. Last time I was in there, I was over they got left in the press room in the main plant, and now it's all runs automatic. Of course, there aren't bumpers, but they got hoods and fenders and all kinds of stuff. And then when the war started winding down, there was rumors about what's everybody going to do. So Amos told me, he said, if I was you, I'd where do you want to go over in the main plant transfer? because when it come to the end and you had to go, they put you wherever they needed help. Maybe you go someplace you didn't want to go. So I transferred over in an engine parts plant.
Okay, now what year was that?
Hmm?
55?
55.
Who
No,
was,
no, wait a minute. I think, yeah, that was in the spring of 55. I think.
okay, who was your foreman over there?
Jack Najelski.
Jack
Jack Najelski.
Najelski, okay.
No,
Your superintendent then was,
who?
who was the superintendent?
Superintendent was, he probably would have had to been Carl Avon.
Carl Avon. Okay, and what building was that in?
That'd have been in 33.
33.
And, I went and worked with crankshafts.
Okay, what did you do on the crankshafts?
Drilled holes in the end, on the flange on the end. And they come down a overhead conveyor, and you had a hoist, a little hydraulic hoist. You hook it off the line, put it in the machine, set it down, close the machine, start it up and drill it, whatever you had to do with it. I don't remember. We drilled it and we done something. I think we done some tapping on it. So open the machine, hook it and put it back on the line. But none of us used the hoist because it was too slow. We just manual lift them up. They were heavy. I don't remember what they weighed, but they were heavy. At the end of the day, you handled tons of iron.
Could one person lift one alone?
Oh, yeah. And then I went, Shepherd was general for it. He was a nice guy. He, about 2 years later, he passed away. I don't remember what he had. He got sick, passed away.
Remember his first name?
No, I was asking my wife. She worked there too.
Oh, yes.
She knew him too, but I can't think of his first name. But he was nicknamed Shep. Everybody called him Shep.
Oh, yes.
And
How were working conditions then? Did you work, you were an hourly person then?
yeah.
Okay, was there a union apparently in there then at that
Oh,
time?
yeah, but I think that just about a year after I went there, they voted to close shop. Before that, it wasn't.
I see.
Maybe it was a year and a half. Before that, you could belong to the union or not belong to it. And, there's people that want to ride along for nothing. And there's pros and cons on that. But anyway, they got to close shops. They took the dues out of everybody. Working conditions. I've worked in 4 or 5 plants before. See, when I hired in, I was 35. And I worked working in Fort Huron and Muskegon. And I consider Oldsmobile the best place I ever worked. If you're going to work in a factory, it was a good place to work. And another thing that'll indicate that there's a lot of people there that's worked there and quit and went into some other endeavor and eventually come back again. And I know people that's been there, left and come back the 3rd time. There's a fellow here that he made foreman probably 5 years before I retired. And I didn't know where he come from. I did probably at the time, but he lives over here in Brain. I knew he's over there, and I called him up and invited him over the other night. It's been a couple of weeks ago. Come to find out, he'd worked there in I think in 49. And he left and didn't come back. No, wait a minute. Yeah, somewhere in 49, 50.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Then he left and didn't come back until middle 60s. And I don't know, any place, it's hard to keep any factory, clean. That's but clean. That's all right. You got machining going on, and it's noisy environment.
Sure.
And I think that's one. I got 1 and 2 hearing aids, and I don't know. Maybe I'd have been hard of hearing if I hadn't worked in plants all my life. Maybe I wouldn't have. I don't know. Who knows? But that's one reason I got out early rather than stay longer, was because of the fact that my hearing was starting.
Yes. What about the safety practices?
You know what?
What about the safety?
Safety factors, I always thought they were good. Of course, I'm always safety conscious anyway. There's a lot of people, and the people that work for me later, you just see people and I don't get brought up careless. Well, I wasn't. For instance, if I laid a rake down when I was a kid and had the tines up on the rake, I really got it. Because you could play around and fall on it.
Right.
So things like that, it just was unnatural to me. So I think they've done everything they could in the plants to, as far as safety. No, I don't know. I guess they might have had a little worse record in press rooms, but presses are dangerous anyway.
Do you remember any incidents where they had a problem with safety? Or anyone being injured or?
Well, I know. Well, I don't. I know in the plant. I didn't know him personally. I had a guy cut his finger off.
How do you do that?
Well, it was a machine that. This is after I was on supervision, years later. But it was. We pushed two buttons and the center's plunged out. And
On what piece was that?
it was I think it was on a crankshaft. And so he put the part in and he had his finger in the way. And I think, we couldn't prove it, but I think you had two buttons, so your hands would have to be here and you couldn't have them on the part. And so I think some of them, people used to take and wedge one button down, so they could only have to use one.
Oh,
Follow me?
yes.
And that was a dangerous practice, and they wouldn't want to let me catch anybody doing it. But it was done, and I think that's what happened to this fellow. And we had one time a lot of conveyors had their motors, big electric motors overhead that drove the chain conveyors or any kind of conveyors, overhead conveyors. And this one had vibrated loose some way. Of course, when they're hanging up there and it's dark, there's no periodically inspection or anything, but the motor dropped off, come right down beside him. It's probably a motor that big around, this long, probably weighed 150 pounds. But from then on, they went through the whole plant, put a safety cable on every motor it was hanging above. So if it broke off from its mounting, it couldn't hit the floor. It would hang there, see?
Do you remember what year that was?
Oh, I'd say it's probably 58, 59, somewhere in there.
Were you on supervision
No.
then?
Or, and then no, what do you want to do? Move on?
Sure, you just talk.
Okay, we were at crankshafts, and then crankshafts had a pilot line over in the jet plant, and they were going to move over there. They had a pilot line going, and still the old department was here, but they were gradually moving it over. Well, I didn't want to go back over there.
Where was the crankshaft in
That was
the
in
main plant?
In the main plant?
Yeah.
In 33 buildings.
Okay.
And so Amos Proctor, in the meantime, when they closed up the jet plant, the jet engine part of it, he went over to camshafts right next door to crankshaft. So he said, you aren't going back over to jet plant with the crankshafts, are you? And I said, I don't want to. Well, he said, no, I want you over here in the morning. So the next morning I went over in camshafts.
Was that 58, 59?
That was in 55. No, that was in had to have been 56.
Okay.
55, when I went over there in 55, at that year was the most engines they ever built in 1 year.
How many engines? Do you have an idea?
I couldn't tell you now. But we were overlapping shifts and everything else. They just kept the equipment going. And after that year, they must have known that things were gonna improve, and then automation started showing up. We started getting newer equipment and getting automated, and previous to that, there was very little what you'd call automation. But after that, the automation just seemed to grow.
Okay, now automation in, what types of things?
Oh, like, the camshaft, or, crankshafts. When they moved it over there, it was all automated. The crankshafts would go from one machine automatically into another one, out of it into another one, where before it was all manual into one
Lifting.
machine and taken out, and put in
I
another
see.
one. And they kind of doubled up on the operations, like maybe they had 3 machines, and when they put automation in, they could have 2 machines that do the same work. And I went over and worked for Amos about, I don't know, several months. And then they was bringing in a new indexing machine for rocker shafts.
What, purpose is a rocker shaft?
Rocker shaft is on a V8 engine, you got one on each side, and they're mounted on a bracket, and you got rocker arms. It rock up and down, and the push rod makes them go up and down, and they open and close the valves.
I see.
And there was a shaft, about this long. And there was, well, there had to have been 4, there was 8 of these rocker arms. Maybe it was this long, 8 rocker arms on each side. Exhaust and intake for each cylinder. And they got that machine in, and it was previous to that, they had one at, I think it was just, they had 3 or 4 people. They had to put the rocker arm in there and push a button, and the drills would come down, drill it, and go back out, and they'd take it out. This one here automatically rolled them in, automatically loaded, and it was a square machine. Here. Load here, and it'd load into a pallet. And it'd go here and index, and then do a little drilling. Go again and do a little drilling. Go this way and do a little, and it went around over here and exit, and that was all complete. And they had a lot of trouble with it, so Amos wanted me to see what I could do with that. So I went over there and I worked on that for, I don't know, probably 6, 8 months.
What kind of trouble would you have with it?
Well, there was some of the holes were real small, maybe a 32nd. I believe there's one of them. I can't tell you the dimensions, it's been so long I can't forgot, but they were small. They kept breaking drills, and you couldn't keep it in cycle. And it was just one thing after another. Any equipment, automation that you put in, you got to work the bugs out of it and just keep working at it and make little revisions here and there. And finally you get it working. And but I don't remember now what their line of thought was to get that machine. They must have ordered it. Of course, back then you had to, like, they wanted a new piece of equipment. I think they ordered it 2 or 3 years before they needed it, or take that long to get it. And in the process, they was changing the rocker arms. So they don't, rocker arms aren't on a shaft anymore, unless they changed that in, must have been probably 58 or 59. And now they don't even, the rocker shaft department don't even have it. They don't need it. The rocker shaft, previous to that, the rocker arms were cast and they were brought in and machined. Now they are right then, and they still continue the same way. They press them out. And they're pressed, and there's no hole in them. There's no shaft, that they set on a kind of a pinion with a fastened down, and they just sit there and rock this way, see, instead on a shaft.
Oh.
And so that eliminated the shaft. So that was done. And then the machining and small parts where they made the rocker arm, that was eliminated. So that left a big vacant area in the plant there. I mean, in that division, right? So
That was at plant
Mhm.
3, the jet plant.
no,
Oh, that's
it's
in the main plant.
Yeah, building
Okay.
33. And they moved camshaft, expanded camshafts after they left, expanded camshafts, took this machine out I've been working on, And just about that time, they had a new big bearing cap machine that made the bearing caps, whole crankshaft. And it was a two cycle, or no, not two cycle, it run two every cycle instead of one. The old machine they had.
Okay, we're all in business again.
This here run two bearing caps, and they come in from a foundry, and it run through a broach, and then they come down a conveyor and went into this machine, all automatic. When it got through the machine, had a person down at the end taking them off and putting them on a basket on a overhead line, and they were all ready to go in the machine, in the cylinder block. So I worked on that machine for, I don't know, must have been 59 till, maybe it was 60 until 62, and then I went over in the block floor. I worked over there for a while.
What building was that in?
Oh, that was in 28. That was right next door to 34,
Okay.
28 building. And
what did you do on the block floor?
well, Amos, I think he tried to get me in on as a foreman. And at that time, I told him, well, you know, if they want me, they know where I'm at. I'm not going to push nothing. If they want me, they know where I'm at. And so I went on the block floor, and I still don't know what much job was supposed to have been there. I was helping here and helping there and doing repair work here and there, and I don't think I had a classification. But anyway, the foreman that was over there.
Remember his name?
Les Cady.
Les Cady.
I and him didn't hit it off too good, so. I think there was one of the fella that took the bearing cap machine. He wanted to transfer out, so I went back over there.
You went back over to the bearing cap machine?
Yeah. And it was shortly after that, and the general foreman over there in the block floor, Warden Carey, he came over and he said, wanted me to go over foreman school, or foreman test. So he set the date up, and I went over there and.
Where was that?
Same. Where'd I go?
Yeah, where was the testing done?
What was 64?
That was the old engineering building.
Well, it wasn't that. No, it wasn't that. It was, well, what was not 140? What was the other building over there?
Building 62?
Bobby 62.
Okay.
And they, no, it was before they tore it down and rebuilt like they got now.
Okay.
Yeah. I kind of lost track of the name of or numbers and buildings. But anyway, I went over there and took that, and Pat Belgowan was assistant superintendent, and I didn't hear anything more about it for about a year, and then they switched around. I don't. Maybe Belgowan retired. No, I don't know. But anyway, Kerry Fowler come over. He was in the engine plant. See, we call that the engine plant and the engine parts plant, but it was all under one superintendent, head superintendent. And Fowler come over, and he went over there just shortly, and he called me in, wanted me to go over and take another part of that test that they added on. He wanted me to go and take that, so I already took that.
And he was the superintendent then? Fowler? Assistant superintendent, okay.
And so I went and took that, and it was just shortly after that. And I think that was probably in September, first of the year. I think it was the first, it was January 2nd or 3rd day of 64, with one in classes at London School.
Where were the classes held?
Oh, I still don't, that, it's over in that area, where,
Building where the hospital is?
yeah.
Building 62.
Only we went in from the other side, the street side.
Okay, but yeah, building 62.
Is that 62?
Yes,
Okay,
the
okay.
employment office was in there too then.
Yeah, okay, I think that was the building we went to.
Okay,
I think we moved. I think there was some reason or another it wasn't big enough or something. I can't remember.
were there other people taking foreman's
Yeah,
training
it was,
too? How many were in your class?
I think there was 20 of us in different areas.
Remember the instructor?
What?
Do you remember the name of the instructor?
I can't, I know the one previous to him,
Who was that?
Andy Schrettengroff.
Andy Schrettenbach.
Yeah, and now he, went the class at, I know a fellow went to school with him, had him, and then I went to the next class and I had a different fellow. And I've been trying to think of his name, and I've been thinking about it for off and on for a week, and I can't think of it.
Was it McHenry?
No.
Okay,
He had been an instructor of some kind previous to that at Wayne University.
okay.
I don't remember that.
How long was this course?
Well, we had 6 weeks. It was 6 months. It was, I think it was 3 months in school and then 3 months in job training.
Okay.
And,
Where did you do your on-the-job training?
where? First place I went was up Final Assembly.
And that was in what building then? Get this out of the.
No, that's all right, that's all right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It was a transmission area where we hung the transmissions on. And where they had what they called a red pit, where the cars come out final and if there was something, that had to be repaired underneath, they had, a row of pits where they could drive over and do anything underneath.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
and that was called the Red Pit area.
yeah, repair area. And right across from that was where the engines come up from the motor plant, come up, and we hung the transmission on them. And a couple other little things, but basically it was hanging the transmission on. We had to be responsible if there was transmissions there to hang on and get the right one and the right engine.
Mhm.
And then across the aisle, we had to take care of these people that was repairing the cars. And Phil Later was the general foreman, and he could really bark. I mean, yeah, I think he passed away now. The time I was over there. Well, you work with a foreman for about a week, and then the foreman steps out, and then you handle it yourself for about a week, see, and then you go to another area.
I see.
And Phil Later one night, on a Friday night, called up, he asked me, he said, how many cars you got out there? So we had cars outside the building. If there was more than what you could, you have in the area where we had designated to go on to that red pit. And if there was more than that, they had to be run outside. And they had drivers that drove the cars that had to be repaired from some area. And I learned real fast because, you know, he asked me how many, and I was going to tell him. I'll go and find out and tell him. And so I had to go maybe farther here to the kitchen door and step out, take a look out there. Oh, he gave me hell for waiting so long and tell him how many was out there. So he said, you know, you got to get them cleaned up, he said, before quitting time tonight. I don't want any of them cars outside. And after that, anytime he called and asked me, I just made a good guess at it. But I should have done in the first place. I had some idea, but I wasn't positive, see. And so it just happened that everything went, it just tickled me. Everything went good, and I got the cars cleaned up. And it must have been maybe 45 minutes before quitting time, and I looked and there wasn't none outside. And I called him up. You know, come on, bring me some cars down here. What's the matter with you? And I got along with him a little better after that.
Well, these were cars then that had some mechanical.
Yeah,
thing,
something that needed something underneath done.
Yes, but you didn't do anything in that area on paint or upholstery
No.
or anything like
No.
that. Very fine.
It was just maybe shock wasn't tightened up, or and after it went through inspection, or, it could have been anything if they had to do underneath the car. And then
Now, this is still in your foreman training area.
that was quite a job. We had engines stored, that we could put in, in case the motor line had a problem. And the teletype called for a certain engine, and they didn't come up. Well, then we could pick it up, have it picked up, put on the line. So I had to keep it. I went in early every day, about 45 minutes, and went down. Some of them, after you get the regular foreman, he had a utility man he could depend on, and he'd go down there and take an inventory for him. But I wanted to make sure myself when I was just there just a week, so I went down in early and took an inventory so I know what engines I had down there. So I wouldn't be caught with, they'd call me and tell me if there was some going to be missing on a certain type engine. And then here, come to find out I didn't have any. And then they'd go through the line, go upstairs with no engine on, and then you get in trouble because that thing's got to mesh. They got to be there when they're supposed to be. And from there, I went down to, I'm getting a little mixed up. I went down to the building I come from. But rocker, no, wait a minute. The rocker shaft or rocker arms were just going out then. Because they put me a foreman in the rocker arm department. That was probably just maybe like 2-3 weeks. And it was in the process of
Phasing out that part.
phasing out, yeah. They was running more, I believe they run longer than was necessary. I think they run a lot of spare parts before they shut it down.
So the design of the engine was such that it didn't require a rocker arm anymore?
No, it had a rocker arm.
Oh.
It was a different style.
I
See,
see.
instead of being on this shaft,
Oh, yes.
they put it on the other way, but they didn't. I think we probably run some of those while I was up school. They probably run some of those shafts too. But when they phase out something like that, there's a lot of engines on the road that's got that old style rocker arm.
These would be replacement parts.
Yeah,
they were running.
right. So I think they might have been 3 months or something.
But what year was that?
Had to have been 64.
Okay.
And then when they done cleaned that or phased that out, then I went camshafts.
That was in building 30.
That's 33. I see that was, there's building 33 here. And here was rocker arms. There was camshafts. There was crankshafts. That was quite a big area. And then there was the rod department. Well, there was some time in there after the rush in '55 when they started to automate, and when the crankshafts went out, and then they put piston rod assembly in between piston rod assembly and pistons went in where crankshafts used to be.
Oh, yes.
So they moved the piston department from, I think it was over in 23 building. That's where it always was. And they moved it over in 30, and then they put a piston rod assembly. So that assembled the pistons and the pins and the rod before it went over the motor line.
Okay.
And so I went to camshafts, and then there was a older foreman over in the block floor in 28 where I'd worked before, and he was going to retire.
Remember his name?
Yeah, Charlie Hutt.
Charlie Hutt?
Hutt, H-U-T-T, yeah.
Okay.
And just shortly before he retired, I was over with him probably a couple of weeks.
You're still on this training program?
No.
Okay.
Oh, well, it might have been. No, I don't think so. Well, yes, it was too. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was one of the other fellows that went to school. It was over at the forge plant.
Who was he?
Jennings, Earl Jennings. He took his first week of training on the block floor. So then he went back over to the forge plant, and the forge plant was kind of cutting back then, so they didn't need him over there. So he got along pretty good on the not knowing not coming from the main plant, and a different type of thing. He come from the forge plant, see, that's different than machining. So they put him back on the block floor, and this Andy Schrettengoff, he was an instructor, and he was bound. He wanted to get on supervision because he could make more money and he could teach it. But he might have probably was a real good instructor, but he couldn't handle people. He was in trouble all the time. So finally he was there. He was there wasn't too long, and he just quit. And so I went over to the piston floor and took his place.
And that was the foreman?
Yeah, and then they put me on permanent time.
Oh, that was in 64.
64, yeah.
Do you remember what your starting salary was?
Yeah. $624 a month. At base salary. You know, we worked, most of that area worked overtime, most of the time.
How many men did you have under you?
I think that time they were 34.
Okay, now they were hourly men.
Yeah.
Did you, Earl, experience any difficulty coming from the hourly ranks yourself and then supervising hourly people?
Not too much, because the fact that I think that's why this training program was good. I know there was at the same time they was switching around. They needed help so bad they put two foremen that had been on the floor, and they put them on foreman without going to school. And they didn't really have a problem, but it was hard for them. One side of the fence to the other. But this here, you got indoctrinated on the other side of the fence, and then when you went in, it's just more comfortable. But you always get static, you know, there's guys that I worked with, and most of them were all right, but there's always a stinker in the crowd, you know.
Sure.
So you just gotta cross the bridge when you come to it.
Right.
Well, I got along good.
Well, how long were you still remained a foreman and when you retired?
Yeah.
And in what area was that?
I went to several areas, but I wound up retiring the same place at the piston
Where you
floor.
started on the piston floor?
Well, I kind of liked it. It was real fast. It was a tough department. Nobody wanted it.
Why was it a tough department?
Well, we worked overtime. We didn't have enough equipment to produce what they required, and we had to work overtime to do it. And we tried 2 or 3 times to put 3 shifts on. Well, we couldn't never get as much out of 3 shifts you could out of 2 12-hour shifts. Because you had one more change, people changing, and then I suppose a lot of it was when you put the 3rd shift on, you had new help on, and you had to split them up, you know, and put some on one shift and some the other. People didn't like that. It kind of interrupted them, you know, and they didn't like it. And we just couldn't produce as much in 3 8-hour shifts. We could 2 12-hour shifts. So we'd try it for a month or 2 and then go back because we losing ground. You had to do something. And these pistons, it was all automated. We had a person stand on a platform. It was about 6 foot above the ground, and these cardboard cartons are about that square and this high, and they had rough piston castings. And the trucker would set them and up on the platform, and the person would unbundle it and put them down conveyor chutes, roller skates.
The whole box?
No, just one at a time.
Oh, pick out these pistons one at a time?
Put them in one at a time.
That's a manual operation then?
Yeah, and there was, at one time we had better than 100 different types of pistons. 100 of them. So you had, for 98, the sizes was A double A, B double B, C double C, D double D, E double E, and a 5 over and a 10 over.
All for the 98.
Well, yeah. Now you take the 88, you had the same thing. Then you had, we run the police car engine. And then we run F-85s. And we had, I'm telling you, it was terrible. And, and these pistons, theoretically, they could, when they unload them, put them down the skate conveyor into the first set of machines, theoretically, they could have went all the way around and went clear over to completed, ready to put in stock without touching them. Outside of, they did, for the fact that there was several places where at the first, we had visual inspection, but later they got what they call a classifier and a multi-check that done it all automatically, checked everything that had to be checked on.
Well, how could this process make all these A, double A, B, double B? How did that work?
You just
On a piece of paper?
here, that's about the size of a pistol.
Okay.
They come up and it had, this was cut down here. So it was cut down, these here we called ears. And they broke easy. You had to be careful. You break those and it's no good. And then the head of the piston here, it first went through the first set of machines, and at that time we had older machines. I think there were Sunstrand, and there was a person on each machine, and I think there was 16 machines. And you put it in, they were laid, really a lathe.
So it was a manual thing to put the piston in the machine?
Well, I think they rolled down and went in, but there was one machine and one person had to watch it.
Okay.
They went in and they cut grooves in. Did you ever see what they call a piston?
Yes.
Okay, well, there's ring grooves.
Right.
There's 3 of them. All right, the machine put the ring grooves in.
Okay.
And they had to be in, if you had a machine off center a little, or dirt in behind the center or anything, but when that went around, it would quip a little, and that we call that snake. And if it had anything like that, it was no good. It was scrap. So we had to be real careful with it. And when it went through them machines, they come back up and went on a conveyor, and then they went up what they call a silo, and it was about 8 foot in diameter and 12 foot high, and they had brushes inside with a track all the way around it. So these pistons would roll in off this conveyor into this bottom of this silo, and these brushes hit it, and the brushes it kind of was going around, and it'd keep pushing these pistons up.
Oh, yeah.
They keep going up. That was really what it was a compact storage area. See, and these pistons go clear up the top, and there was the whole thing be full of pistons. See? And it all depended on if the operation ahead of that was down, we'd have to have somebody here to take them off because there was no place to put them.
Oh.
If the next operation was running and something mattered with the machine behind it, we had to get anything that we had and put in and have somebody put them on. See? But when they went through this machine, then it was gravity fed down to a smaller silo that fed into another machine and another operation. The next operation had a plunger come down here in the bottom and cut a recess in the cavity of the piston, and that determined a high compression engine that they didn't take out very much. Low compression, if they used for made a lot of marine engines and engines for oil, irrigation, oil wells. Well, they were low compression. Well, they had to change the tool and put a different one in. And then the Starfire and the F-85 and the 88 and the 98, they was all different. And then at the same time they done this operation, they drilled, what was it? He had, of course, right through the middle here, there was a hole for the piston pin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they drilled an oil hole. Oh yeah, in the ring grooves, you drilled little holes. and the piston went in like this here, and these 4 heads on this machine would come in, go out, would drill in 4 holes.
Oh,
And you had to be careful that had to be right, because if the drill or the piston was just a little bit up or down, and then you'd get a mark, you'd get a little cut on the side of that ring groove, and that was no good. That'd scrap it. You couldn't, if there was anything there, it'd be an oil leak.
oh, yes.
So when it went through that operation, it went into another big silo and went all up, and then they gravity fed into the next operation. And the next one, right here between these ears, there was 2 big pads, and that was purpose was to balance the piston. They had to be a certain weight. There was a real close tolerance. They couldn't be over or under that weight. So they went into this balancing machine. I think we had 3 of them, and they'd go in and go on a scale, and then be weighed. The machine will know what they weighed. So you'd go off the machine, go into the machine, and it'd cut as much as that scale told it to take off.
Where would they cut it off?
Right off these pads. There's
Oh, off it, I see.
plunger come down,
Okay,
just like this here, a cutter come right down and hit this pad and take that much off, see?
I see.
And then
Okay,
when it went through that, it'd go on another scale. And if it was within range, it went. If it was out of range, if it took too much off or not enough, then it'd kick it out. So if the operator was on the ball, the first one to it come out, he'd know it. Shut the machine off and see what the problem was. If he was sitting down drinking coffee, well, you could be pumping them out, and then they had to be repaired, see? So,
well, let me ask you, Earl, now, how would this one machine that was, how would the machine know that it was doing a 98 and an 88 and a F85 and a Starfire if those,
well, we had different machines. That's why I said we had
Oh,
three
I see.
machines, and I think there are 4 machines, but one went on one and one went on another one.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then from there, they went into another big silo overhead. And then they went what they call the diamond bore. And this was a high-speed diamond tool that went in and cut this hole for the piston. And it went right through both sides, and that had to be right.
Now that diamond tool went right through,
It'd go right through this and on through and through the other
right
side.
through the piston,
Yeah, yeah. Of course, that hole was already there.
right?
It was cast there when the piston was cast. See, the hole was there, but it wasn't machined.
So
Yeah.
this diamond tool would machine it.
Yeah.
I see.
I think it went through this machine, and here 2 of them come in, and they weren't diamond, but they rough cutted it. The index over here, and then the finished diamond tool they come in and cut it.
See.
Then they go out, and they went into another big silo that worked off. Then they gravity fed from there clear across the department to a big strength. We had 12 landless grinders, and they go over there, and they had 2 men. Each man watched 6 grinders, and he was responsible to pull the gates to keep his silos stock in them, so he'd have stock to run on these machines. So if he didn't, you'd have one of them would have all the stock, and the other wouldn't have any. So they worked good.
Who was the superintendent of this area on the piston line?
Was?
Yeah,
Superintendent? You mean you're talking about assistant superintendent?
well, assistant
Yeah.
superintendent.
Gene Wesley.
Gene Wesley?
I worked for him most of the time. Yeah.
Okay, then you reported to the production manager or the manufacturing manager? I
Well,
mean, your department.
now, what do you mean? What do
I
you say?
mean, were you under production or were you under manufacturing?
Well, I was under production.
Production.
Yeah.
Who was the production manager?
Uh,
Was that Bob Rollis?
who?
Bob Rollis?
Bob Rollis. Yeah. Okay. I kind of forgot that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Chain of
okay.
command.
I think at that time was Bob Rollis. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Did you work with Tom Downey?
no. So, but we was tied in with maintenance people a lot, because anytime anything went down, and there was times when you'd think that everything was down, nothing was running. But at one time I had a machine repair, 2 fixture men, and a millwright and an electrician just on my floor alone. And it kept them busy, and well, sometimes they maybe things would go fairly good, and they'd loan one of them out someplace for a little while. But it was a real fast, tough department, and I didn't mind it. But then they just wanted everybody to kind of be more pliable, so they could do more in one area. So, and then I got transferred. We switched. I went down to rods. I was down there for
Connecting rods?
connecting rods. Yeah,
What building was
that
that?
was the same building.
Same
You remember
building?
what I
Oh,
told you?
yes, I
Yeah,
remember the
yeah.
layout.
It was all right in the same area. And same, Jess Howell was, no, wait a minute, was he there? Somewhere about that time, Jess Howell came in. He was
Jess Howell?
Howell, yes, Howell.
Oh,
He was
okay.
general foreman.
What kind of a man was he to work with?
But
What kind of a man was he to work with?
he was a nice fella. He was a nice fella. He was pretty religious. I guess at one time they said he was a minister or something, but he was, I got along with Jess real good. In fact, after he retired, and well, he was sick a couple, 3 times, like 3 months at a time, and all these vacations, I replaced him as general foreman.
Oh, yes.
And I was told that when I retired, it was Jess retired, and there was 2 or 3 other general foremen retired, that I'd have moved in one of those spots if I'd have stayed instead of retired. But it would come to my hearing, and I was financially all.
So we're starting our second tape here now. You were talking about your retirement or thinking about it.
Yeah, well, if I'd have accepted it, I'd have felt that I had been obligated to stay until as long as they wanted me to stay. And this way, when I retired, it was that first early retirement program.
Okay, when was that?
That was in 74.
1974.
Right after that first gasoline crunch.
Right.
And anybody between 55 and 60 could retire. And I was 56. And I thought about, I was the last one. I was the last. I got some stuff after.
Okay, that would be nice.
Last one to decide to go. Matt Campbell. He was you know Matt did?
Yes.
He was had something to do with retirement. And I talked to him, find out what I'd get and everything, because I told him I'd let him know. And he gave me the date I had to let him know, and so about 2 days before the date was up, I went back over there, and he said, "Boy, I didn't think I'd see you again." But well, I and my wife like to travel, and we've done a lot of it. We've put probably 150,000, well, 140,000 anyway, on 3 different motorhomes. We've traveled all over Alaska and all over. So,
Nice trip.
but now, where was we at before?
Well, you were in a foreman, and you were telling me about the pistons and what a hard
Okay, I got
area that
transferred to
was.
rod department.
Mhm.
And yeah, okay, I was just there, wasn't too long, and then I got transferred over in piston rod assembly. I was right between the rod department and crank and pistons. It was associate department. Pistons and assembly had to work together because we had to produce what they needed, and they had to assemble what the motor line called for, and that was determined by the way they put the blocks on the block floor. When they honed the blocks, back at that time they had as I told you, A, double A, B, double B, and that whole string. But when they bored the block, they was sized and stamped what it was.
I see.
So when that come around to the motor line, and they picked it off a teletype and transferred the teletype over to where they select pistons at, well, that particular engine had 8 pistons in it, and it was probably every one of them different. And they had to go in the right sequence, see?
Oh,
So really what the block floor ground, or maybe the way that they were put on the line, determined what we had to do. They might be over there running, take a whole day, and maybe change tools, and maybe they'd be grinding all, the double A was the smallest, double E was the largest.
oh,
It was, I think all them sizes were within 2/1000. Eight sizes were all within 2/1000 of an inch. Oh, it was very, very small, so we couldn't put there's no way we could put like a C piston in an A bore. You'd wreck it. And as far as we could do, we held right what they called for.
remember any real problems?
Oh yeah, we had we had problems all the time. At one time, they built 28 buildings. They built the building with something in the future, but it was empty. Nice, great big building. They hadn't utilized it yet. So we thought, I don't know. It seemed like it was might have been. I'm not sure. It seemed like it was a year. It wasn't. Sales were down a little bit or something. But anyway, we got a better than $500,000 inventory in pistons ahead. And where they unloaded these and had this, what I told you, put them on a platform.
Yes.
Well, they were in a cardboard carton, and they had a square cardboard like this here in between each layer. So at the end of the line, after they went through classifiers, the pistons are all ready to use. Instead of, when the slides got full, we could probably handle, I don't remember now. There was probably 7,000 to 8,000 pistons, maybe 10,000 in these slides between the piston department and the assembly department, where they took them out and used them. See, and they're all category. All these sizes, all they had to do was pick them out of these slides. They were the pistons were on a plastic tray about that square, and there was 4 recesses in them, and the pistons set in them. So whenever we handled the pistons, there was 4 of them set in these trays, and then we handled the trays. The trays went down the conveyor, and they pick them out, and it was all segregated. We had people up there, when the pistons come up, they might be all mixed up, and they had to separate them, put them down the right slide.
This was still in building 33.
Yeah, and well, when they automate and change, move crankshafts out and put pistons in there, between 34 building, where that was, and 33 building, there was a wall with an alleyway outside in between them. But we had windows when I was in crankshafts, and you'd open up, get more air. So somewhere along in there, when they put pistons in there, they took them 2 walls out, braced it up, and made it all one building. Yeah, well, it wasn't really one building because they had a brick wall in between them, but they had doors in between so you could go out and in. And then they, where before they couldn't utilize that area. It made more available space there too. But I lost my track of thought.
Well, you were mentioning some problems about the pistons. First, You had 4 in these
Oh,
plastic trays going
Oh,
down
oh,
the
I know.
conveyor.
You know, when the slides got full, like maybe we'd work a Saturday and the line didn't. Well, we'd store them ahead and we'd have, take this cardboard, saved all this cardboard we used and take it over and put it in these steel guns. Line the sides, both sides and the bottom, and put a layer of these trays of pistons in, put a cardboard on, another layer of cardboard, and fill it right up, and then put visqueen plastic over it and tie it down, and then tag it as to what classification piston's in it. Then take it out, and put it in storage.
Oh,
And
yes.
we had
Where was
gone piled
storage? Where was storage then?
at building 28.
Okay,
Yeah, see, the one they hadn't built, hadn't used yet.
right.
So we thought maybe we could help ourselves with doing that. Well, it worked in a way, but then about a year, 2 years, I guess, we had to get them out of there because they was gonna use it. They put block floor and head floor and so on over there. But, then we had to work without inventory, without very much inventory. Then it got worse yet. Because the block floor, at times I'd go over there maybe every 2 hours and check their counters and see what sizes bores they were making. Then I have to come back and make sure my grinders were grinding about the same thing. Because if they was making small bores, like in the A and Bs, and I was grinding C and Ds, well, finally they come together, well, somebody's gonna be out, see? And I tried 2 or 3 times, tried to get them to put a low voltage counter from their, they had an automatic counter, same as we did on the grinders. And put a low voltage counter and put it in my office, so I could keep track that way without running over there, but they never done it. But, where are we at now? Oh, and then I went to piston rod assembly. And I was there for a year, I guess. But I was in there a couple different times. We kind of bounced back and forth. I was probably in pistons and out of it 3, 4 times, and crankshafts and water pumps, not water pumps, oil pump. I wound up in pistons right where I started at.
Do you remember any labor problems?
What do you mean, my individual labor problem?
Yes, in your area.
Or-
Did you ever have, where they would have to call committeemen in
Oh,
to
yeah.
try to resolve
Yeah.
it?
In fact, my committee man worked for me for 4 years.
Who was he?
I don't know. I know him just so well.
Well, that's all right.
Will that be all right if I hold it for a minute?
Sure, I'll shut it off. So the committeeman's name was
Homer Gullett.
Homer Gullett, and he worked for you on the piston
Right,
line.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'd be called out, if some area needed a committee man, they'd call me and I'd have to get Homer and send him over there. And
See.
the policy kind of got, so he was, there's times that I wanted him and I wouldn't know where he was at. I'd chew him out and then he'd be pretty good for a while. And one time, got him sleeping upstairs. And I needed committee man. Somebody wanted a committee man, and he was sleeping upstairs. So I had to run up, write him up, send him home. He didn't stand too good, but he a couple of days later, when he came back, he apologized. He said he knew he was wrong. And yeah, that's normal as far as having people wanting committee mans all the time.
Did you just supervise men, or did you have some women?
I think there was, about 6 women. I think I had 34, and probably 6, 7 of them was women. I think.
Are they good workers?
Yeah, but at that time, those were things that they couldn't do. You know, at least they thought they couldn't do. And you had to kind of, and once in a while you'd have conflict because, well, we had what they call conveyor attendants. Loading of pistons off the platform in the machine, that was conveyor attendant. We had a tin plater, forgot about that.
Tin plater?
Tin plater, yeah. After the pistons went through the grinders, and then they went through a tin plater. It put a white tin plate on them. And then we had somebody that loaded those, and somebody unloaded them. Unloaded them from the conveyor, put them on the rack, and went through.
Was this a manually,
Well, it was all,
manual operation?
it was a chain thing that went down probably from here to the door in a tank.
I see.
It went down and around. Well, they manually put the pistons on the chain fixtures,
Mm-hmm.
and then when it come back, then you take them off.
I see. Okay.
And they were both conveyor attendants. Well, some people liked that job. They just sat there and moved. Some people, it was too tedious for them. They didn't like that. They'd rather be moving around. So you had to kind of, but they were all same classification.
Oh, yeah.
So theoretically, I could put one any place I wanted to. But, you know, normally if you ever got one place, one job, that, you know, they kind of, human nature says, well, and, you know, it's kind of mine. You know, if they do it very long, they think it's theirs in a way.
True.
Yeah. I had one lady, you'd get, oh, I don't know, she'd come in the morning and I could tell in the morning when I talked to her, I was going to have trouble. So one day I put her on a job. She didn't like it. She was kind of short. She said, "She's too short. You can't do it." I said, "Well, don't tell me you can't do it. You go and try and do it." And so she went over and he was in a storm, and finally she wanted a committee man. No, wait a minute. He didn't want. I put her on another one. And then I changed her about 3 times that morning, because every one I put her on, she beefed about it. About the third one, she said I was just doing that to irritate her. So she wanted a committee man. Of course, Homer Gullett, he knew she'd called him many times before, say. So yeah, I went and had a talk with her and come back, and then I told her where to go, and she was all right. But people are people, you know, you get.
Takes a bit of doing to work with them. Takes a bit of doing to work with them.
Yeah, and then you get to the point where you can tell what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are good.
Well, Earl, you've certainly had a colorful career, haven't you? An interesting career.
And I got a kick out of it, and I think it was 67, I think. When the Vietnam War, when they were starting to take kids to the Vietnam War. And this one, I think it was in September, shortly after school, at least, I think there was about 5 come in. And all new hires, and all of them, I don't know, 18, 19, Bobby. And I don't remember. I think we expanded some way or another. I don't remember why we had 5 all at once. There wasn't 5 quit or anything, but
this was still on the piston line.
And we had one real dirty job. It was you had to wear a pair of hip boots or knee boots, and there was compound flying all over, and it was noisy. And there wasn't a repair job. Huh. We didn't have it too long. I don't know what it was, but it was a dirty job. I had, of course, a new hire. You put them. You don't give them a good job and let older one take a dirty job. So I put him on that, and I placed the other fellas. And this kid, he just stood right there and just worked. And I had the relief man, show him what to do, break him in, and he just worked. And the whistle blew at noon. And I heard that machine running. I started up the cafeteria and I heard this machine running yet. And I was wondering if he didn't shut it off. And I went back there and here he was just working, nobody around. Dwayne, I think was his name. I say, "Dwayne, time to eat." "Biz," he said. so interesting, he didn't even know the rest of them had gone. And so I told him, shut his machine off and go and eat his lunch. And he said, boy, he said, I like that job. I just couldn't get him over. You know, that it wasn't like most young people.
No.
He thought, well, I like that job. And he was a good worker. One of them, he was the type that, I think he figured the world owed him a living. But it takes some work to get him straightened out. The other two was fairly good. You know, they was there probably 5 months somewhere. It wasn't very long. And 3 of them got called to service. So
Was one of them one of these real good fellows?
yeah, a good fellow. And 2 of the other ones. Wait a minute, I think there was 4 of them went. And they all went at the same time. And so I arranged it with the women in the department to kind of set up something so we could have a dinner up at the cafeteria. The last day they worked. Well, they all went, and the one didn't come back. I mean, he come back, but he went to work and done something else. The one that didn't amount much, he come back, and one of the other ones come back. And the guy the kid that had the bad job, he got killed over there.
Oh, for lane's sakes. He was probably going above and beyond the call of duty over there too.
Probably, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I felt bad on that.
Why, sure. Did you ever see any of the big brass out in the plant?
Well,
Who do you saw?
Saw DeLorean,
Oh,
how big as they got.
yeah, right. What year was that? You remember approximately?
That had to be, well, it was about probably within a year after before he retired or before he was released or whatever he was.
Okay.
But Gene Wesley, the superintendent, and he said he wanted that place cleaned up. He had the route where DeLorean was going to go marked out. He said, I want that place you eat off it. So when I got back in my department, I called up maintenance department over in 62 over across the street there. I don't remember where it was at, but they had all their equipment and everything. I asked them if they had one of them scrubbers. They used to have them, a big steel brush scrubber that just polished the floors. You know?
Oh, yes.
And they was made purpose for these wood floors. These wood floors they'd get real black from oil and stuff, you know.
Sure.
And so I had my sweeper go over and get it. He said he had one. No, wait a minute. He said he had one, but there was something wrong with it. And he'd get it fixed that night, and I'd have it in the morning. So the next morning, I sent the sweeper over after it. I sent another guy down to the maintenance department and get a chain and a big padlock. And so I had one guy, a chip hauler, I think it was. I had him pushing this machine down the main aisle. There was, and that he went down one side of my department. And so this one wide aisle on that side of my department, I had him take this machine and just go back and forth and back and forth. And the longer you run it, the cleaner the blocks got.
Oh.
They started to show a little bit of wood instead of being creosote black, see?
Oh.
So I had it polished up beautiful. And I had a painter come in and paint the posts and stuff on the outside of the aisle so it looked good. And
What did you do with the chain and padlock?
well, this machine, when I left that afternoon, the next day I'd never found it. Somebody else had it.
I see.
So I took it inside the department and chained it to a upright beam.
Oh.
So the next morning I'd have it. And
Oh, I see.
and so that took 2 days to do it, and then the other departments, mine was the only one in this building here that it was going through. See.
Mm-hmm.
So when he come through that morning, that was kind of odd to see anybody's long hair.
Yes.
His hair, that's one of the reasons that he didn't find a fit in an establishment,
Right.
And he come through there with his hair flying, and I'll bet you $10 he never saw anything. He didn't know if that floor was green, red, or blue, or what anything looked like.
After 2 days hard work on it.
Yeah, but superintendent he was a heavy-set man, and
Who was
he couldn't.
he?
I don't think he'd keep up with it. He wasn't keeping. He was dragging behind about 6 foot.
Who was the
Gene
superintendent?
Wesley.
Gene Wesley.
Yeah.
Mhm. He should have been pleased about how nice your floor looked.
Oh, well,
The rest of the
yeah,
area.
but see, I went overboard. I know it. It made the rest. It made it look funny here. He's coming down the old black floor, and then here it comes nice clean, then black again. And Gene said to me, he said, "Well, what are you trying to do out there?" I said, "No, you told me to clean that heat off of it." And that's still what I tried to do. But I kind of always felt that somebody above me tried to push something that I didn't think was right, I'd bark back. And I always got along good that way. I just barked back at him, and it was something that I was at fault. I'll take my blame and the same as anybody else, but I want to be at fault before I take blame.
Sure.
We got along all right. We had some run-ins. So if you're working like that, you're always going to have run-ins. If you don't, there's something wrong.
True.
Somebody wrong with one of them.
So DeLorean came in the plant once, and do you remember any other brass?
Just engineer they sent.
Bob Stemple?
Who?
Bob Stemple?
No, well, I know who he is, but this was after I left. Previous to him, the one that had it was chief engineer building the Tornado.
Oh, John Belts?
Oh, wait a minute, Belts. Okay, Belts. No, there was another one that went to Detroit and raised up. He went plant manager for just a very short time, and then from there he went to Detroit and he went right up in his maybe he's retired now, but he was a vice president.
Harold Metzel?
No. He come over there and well, when he first took over plant manager, he was down in my department.
Oh, you mean Don Hackworth?
No.
Doug Tracy?
No.
Bob Mooney?
No. See, now you're on
the other side.
the other side of the fence, yeah. We'll go ahead now. I was trying to think of Doug Tracy. He was my superintendent too.
What kind of a man was he to work with?
I'm Doug got along good. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people didn't. But I got along good with Doug. In fact, I brought my snowmobile and trailer in, took it over to his place, and took my car over there on a Friday night, and a bunch of us went up to Houghton Lake Snowmobile. And I went up there, he pulled my snowmobile up there. We had that afternoon, he had to go over and have a bumper hitch put on over the garage so he could pull it. But he wanted to drive, and so he rode on my snowmobile. I think it was 15 of us up there, and must have been 1970. There wasn't too many of them had snowmobiles then, but I got one of the first ones that they ever had in the area in Lansing. And we just had a tag party up there for a weekend. And in the process, I never come back. I got hit. And one of the guys hit me broadside. Of course, it wasn't his fault, but it was at night. We was out there playing around at night. Hit me broadside, and I got broken pelvis and 5 broken ribs.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So,
But it hit with a snowmobile?
yeah, well, there's a snowmobile here. I was like this here, and he hit me broadside. The ski on each one hit on each side of my leg right there. It flipped it over and punched holes in the side of the sheet metal on it, and it flipped me over and knocked me out. And we was probably half a mile out in the lake, on Houghton Lake north end. And then there was Bob Bryant, and he had a cottage up there, and Ernie Crum. He was my general foreman once too. And And there was another, somebody was up in, I think it read something, but anyway, they was afraid that something there with my back. I was too when I finally come to, because it was painful. I didn't know what was going on. Anyway, they took me went up and got a toboggan. Brought the toboggan back, got me on a toboggan and pulled me up into the living room until the ambulance got there. And the ambulance, they told the ambulance and they looked at me and they put the toboggan and me and all in the ambulance. And I got to Greelington Hospital. They took the toboggan and went up the second floor at the x-ray room. But it still had the toboggan because they didn't want to move me until they found out what was the matter, see. Well, girl up there misread this is about, maybe 1:30 in the morning. The girl up there misread the x-ray and they come in and one of the guys, foreman to work with, he kind of more or less told me it was a broken back. And of course I was hurting so bad I could not, it was a mess. And the next morning I had to go down to x-ray again and they x-rayed it and it was a pelvis. See, this girl misread it somewhere or another, some confusion someplace or another. But I was in the hospital for 10 days there, and in the process, I had the flu, and so.
What next?
Doug Tracy, Bob Bryant was general foreman on the opposite shift of mine, same area but opposite shift, and I knew him pretty good. So Doug Tracy got a station wagon off the line and told Bob to take it up. That weekend I was supposed to come home. So I went up and I got out of the hospital and laid on a mattress on the station wagon and he brought me home with the station wagon.
How long were you out of work?
I think about 6 weeks altogether.
Have you had any serious effects from that?
I always thought maybe I would later in years, but I never did.
Oh, we're still trying to think of this was an engineer. This was an engineer, the name of the man that you were trying to think of after DeLorean. You know,
Yeah.
Was it, you said it wasn't Metzel. It wasn't Dorshimer.
No.
Tim Lewis, Frank Ball.
Probably someplace wrong. I got a paper or something that tells it's got that line up on it. His name would be on it, but I wouldn't work.
You say he went to General Motors?
Huh?
He went Howard Carroll?
Howard Carroll.
Howard Carroll, okay.
Guy, yeah.
Very fine. And he was out in the plant, you say?
You what?
He used to come out in the plant?
Well, no.
But you knew him?
Well, no, I wouldn't say I know him. You asked me who I seen in the plant.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, he come down. I don't know if he went all through the area, but he probably. But I think Doug Tracy and him and probably Wesley was down one morning.
Okay.
But he just down because he took over plant manager. But he wasn't. It don't seem like it was over. What, a couple of 3 months, and then they shipped him to Detroit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Cook?
Yeah. So most of those guys, you never see them down the plant.
I just wondered if any of the general managers did come
down.
No,
you very seldom. I think I might have seen him once or twice down there, but they never come down like that.
Oh.
And then Harold Houghton,
Oh, yes.
Remember Harold?
Yes.
Yeah, he was my superintendent.
They were all set.
He was all right.
When did you work with Harold Houghton?
When?
Yes. What can you remember the period? No.
Yeah, it was them rough years in Pistons.
Okay.
He was the superintendent then, but he had been in meetings with him,
Mhm.
several of them. We used to have a periodically meeting, and this one time, we was way out of budget. Engine parts departments they were way out. And of course, anything is out, I could see Harold's point, he didn't like it. And he was kind of chewing us out for being over budget. Well, right at that time, the departments had no idea of what the budget was, or who spent the money, or where it went, or nothing else. We had no control of it whatsoever. So I told him, I said, Harold, I said, I don't mind, I'll do my job, but if I'm gonna be responsible for a budget, it sounds like I am, I want to know what it is, and I want to know where the money goes, and I want to see some paperwork on it. And so, in the process, we got started about, a month after that, and they give us IBM sheets folded.
Oh, yes.
Then you could take these, unfold them, and see the piston department, see what was charged to it. And I tracked that down for off and on for a month, and I found maintenance department would buy equipment or supplies for some other department, and they'd charge it to my department. I had no control, and after that, I'd chase them things down, and hey, go up and tell them, now, hey, Harold, look here, that don't belong on there. And so we got it straightened down, and that kind of. But I think as I left, they wasn't keeping up with it. But I think they should have every month, or I think it was monthly or quarterly. Like it was monthly. The foreman should have got a copy of that and been responsible for it and checked it out and see what it was.
That way you would have had more
but the other way,
control.
you had no idea, no control or nothing. We'd order things, write ABOs and order, things made for the department and changes, simple changes and stuff like that, but not big stuff. It was on that. It was interesting.
Well, you've had a colorful career, haven't you?
Well, between that and the rest of them, I had, born and raised in Upper Michigan.
Oh.
And when I got old enough to go to work, and of course, hard times and everything, and I didn't have any education, and Dad died when I was 13. Well, I knew there was nothing up there for me. I worked in the woods.
Northern Michigan town is that?
What, Munising?
Oh, yes. Upper Peninsula.
Upper Peninsula, yeah. It was all it was, just woods work, and then I drove school bus finished out 1 year, with nothing then. So I left up there and come to Lansing. I had an uncle over at Langsburg it had a farm, and he bought another farm and sold his farm. He wanted me to come down and help him move. And so I helped him move. There, it took about 3 weeks. In the process, I put an application in at Motor Wheel and Fisher Body and Oldsmobile. And that's when they had the old employment office. I mean, that was 1940.
Oh, in the basement of Building 60?
Well, I guess it was Building 60, but it was different than it was when I went there in 52.
Oh.
Yeah, they fixed that corner different.
Yes.
And then Rio. But things were pretty slow then, And after it got done helping my uncle move, I had a brother over to Fort Huron, so I just went over to Fort Huron. And I was over there about a week, I guess it was, and I got a letter from Olds, sent to my uncle, and he forwarded it to Fort Huron. And it stated in the letter, if I was still interested in employment, report to the employment office.
That was
1940.
40.
And I'd always wished that I'd come back, because I wound up there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But, I got a job over there, and I just figured, well, that was the reason I would come down here, because I always liked Oldsmobile. It was one fella up there, he owned a store, and that's all he'd have, an Oldsmobile. And I just always liked an Oldsmobile, so I thought I'd like to work there.
So you eventually did get in 1952,
Got there anyway,
and then you retired in 1974.
74.
Well, Earl, I want to thank you for a very interesting interview. You covered a long period of time there, and an interesting one too. You made a good contribution.